And Josh Appel is joining us now. Hello, Joshua.
Gentlemen, how are we doing on this Victory Monday?
We're feeling pretty good. In fact, I would imagine, I said at the beginning of the show, Dolphins are 2-0, Canes are 3-0, Crowder's Florida Gators held court at the Swamp. Solana's FIU Panthers beat Connecticut, a little upset this Saturday, and your own USF Bulls deserve a little bit of praise because you hung with Alabama, and you kind of made Nick Saban fall out of the top 10 for first time I can remember.
It's the biggest win USF has had since I've been following the school since 2012 when I started going there.
Well, it wasn't really technically a win, but if you use the Pythagorean theorem, it might actually be a win. In fact, the USF Bulls are the best team in baseball.
Something's wrong with them.
They won 37.5
distributive
to 17.
Problem.
What are we talking about? They won 37.5 to 17.
Oh, yeah, with the spread, they did win.
Yeah, I mean, great teams cover, and that's what they did. I mean, they sent Alabama into disarray. I think they demoted their defensive coordinator before our game. Lane Kiffin said that in a press conference. They've played now 4 quarterbacks this year, it feels like. 3, maybe 4. And they had a players-only meeting after the USF game. I mean, the Bulls put the Tide into disarray.
You know, that players-only meeting, the only time I had a players-only meeting in my career was 2007 Dolphins, the 1-15 team. If you have a players-only meeting, that means you're terrible and you're about to lose a lot of damn games. It doesn't work.
Well, I don't think there was ever any doubt that USF was terrible. It's why it was so shocking that they were able to hold Alabama to 17 points. Was it tied at half?
It was 3-3 at halftime. It was 10-3 going into the fourth quarter. The USF had the ball halfway through the fourth quarter in Alabama territory, down 10-3.
Let's all give Nick Saban 3 fingers. All right.
Let's you want to give him.
Making Solana think about his math teacher. What? Anyway, where were we?
What was her name, Solana?
Dolphins and Ravens, Josh, are the only 2 undefeated teams in the AFC. So, and I know it's only been a couple of weeks. What conclusions can you make about the Dolphins right now?
That they still haven't played their best football, and they've won 2 very difficult road games. We talked about it after week 1. Obviously, they missed extra point there. The run defense was terrible, but they should have had 50 points. And that's not even an exaggeration. Like, they left 2 touchdowns at least on the field. This week, the run defense improves. The rush offense was great. Offensive line had another good day. But it didn't look as pretty as it did in week 1 offensively, especially in that second half. And credit overrated Bill Belichick and the Patriots for a good defensive game plan to kind of take the deep ball away from the Dolphins. But what's amazing about this offense, all right, you want to take Tyreek out. Jalen Waddle was a little quiet. I mean, he's still at, 80, 90 yards receiving on a handful of catches. But it was River Craycraft, it was Durham Smythe, it was Braxton Berrios with big catches throughout the course of the game. They can beat you with anybody they throw out there in this scheme. And the Dolphins defense, second week in a row, needed stops at the end. They got those stops. This team can win ugly, and I'm looking forward to seeing when they can win a game when they play a full, complete game.
And Josh, am I overreacting? We talked about it earlier, where I knew for a fact, and you know what Belichick does. He's not going to let your best player beat him. And that's what they did to Tyreek. Tyreek was very quiet. But seeing that they have to leave 2 safeties deep because they weren't going to let Tua throw for 500 yards, you look at week 1, you say, okay, that's not going to happen again. And then Raheem Mostert runs for, over 100 yards, 120. Like, I am so encouraged by seeing that my head coach figures that thing out, and he always has an answer to what I know you say he's overrated, but I think he's one of the greatest defensive minds in football. Like, am I overreacting to 2 games, seeing how the game last week went against the Chargers, and then seeing what McDaniel could do when Belichick, countered his attack?
I would like it on the record that I don't actually think Belichick's overrated. for what it's worth.
He's
Even
no
though his
Fangs.
record,
he's no Fangs.
he's no Lord Fangs. Although his record without Brady is quite a bit under 500. So, I mean, do it without Brady. But Bill Belichick, obviously great. I mean, you guys talked about the block field goal play. It reminded me almost of in the great Will Ferrell movie Semi-Pro when they throw the alley-oop for the first time. Everybody's like, is this legal? Is that allowed? That's what I thought on the field goal block. But no, I don't think you're overreacting. And I think one of the big things from last year to this year that you wanted to see Mike McDaniel improve upon is, in a game like last year against the Chargers and a game like last year against the Steelers, it didn't really seem like he had answers for what they were taking away. Last night, they ran the ball incredibly effectively. They were balanced on offense. I mean, last year, Mike McDaniel, when he would kind of get frustrated when the offense was stagnant, he would try and throw his way out of it. They ran the ball right down the throats of New England yesterday, and that is a really good defense. So I think that's the most encouraging part of this. The way this offensive line has held up for the second week in a row against another team with another good set of pass rushers. I don't think you can be anything other than encouraged, especially when the issues that this team has, at least in my eyes, seem pretty easily correctable. Fix your snaps. And the penalties still kind of an issue. And they're still kind of turning the ball over a little bit. Tua threw another bad interception. I think that these issues that they have are fixable. And look, you go into prime time, night game at New England, and you get a win. I don't care how ugly it is. You take that and you run right back to South Florida. I mean, think about it this way. Channing, how many Dolphins teams were you on where you miss an extra point after you take the lead and the other team goes down and scores, kicks a field goal, and you lose the game because you missed the extra point?
No.
You fumble a snap on 3rd and 1 when you have a chance to ice the game and then you miss a 55-yard field goal. Team comes down, ties the game. Who knows what happens? You lose after. How many Dolphins teams have you been on when that happens? And it just feels like this team, whatever mojo they have around there with McDaniel and what he's brought, it just seems, it not just seems different. It is different.
Were you surprised at all that they did kick that 55-yard field goal? I was saying to Solana and Crowder, it was so out of character for me of who I thought Mike McDaniel was that I was saying a punt I thought would have been more his style than a field goal. I thought for sure they'd go for it. But if he wasn't going to go for it, I thought maybe punt and pin him deep. The field goal there, I thought it put Jason Sanders in a bad spot. People are complaining about him today, but I was very surprised Mike McDaniel kicked the field goal there.
Forget the difficulty of the distance of the kick. I think Chris Collinsworth brought up a great point. Psychologically, if you're Jason Sanders and you've struggled from that distance and you just had one blocked the way that it was blocked and they're going to try that same thing again, I'd imagine that that's just in Jason Sanders' head in that spot anyways. There are Twitter accounts or websites that calculate whether you should go for it, punt, or kick a field goal in situations like that. And the math there was very marginal. It was 91% win percentage if they kicked, 92 if they punt, 93 if they go for it. And if they fail, 86% they win, go for it, 88% and fail if they win. The math was marginal, but kicking the field goal was still the third best option of those three. And especially even last week, we saw him go for it on a 4th and 7 in a similar spot in that game. I agree with you, Hawk. It just seemed really out of character because worst case scenario, obviously you don't want taking the turnovers out of the equation. Tua gets sacked. Okay, they're going to get the ball at the same spot that they got it because of the missed kick at the 45-yard line or whatever it was. It was just bizarre, especially because of what we've come to know from Mike McDaniel.
And Josh, do you know there's a horse behind you walking around?
That was my dog, Wade.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I didn't, I thought I might have been, saw a cat in the studio. I was like, there's a horse walking behind Josh
cat
right
around
now.
Here?
No,
if I got my cat's name wrong.
Hey,
he's along for the ride.
Yeah, it's crazy. That dog is too big, and he was going to bite somebody soon.
That dog is too big.
I wanted to ask you because something, Hawk, and we were talking about earlier. We're like, the speaking of those decisions, being on top is easy to talk about till you're on top. And Pat McAfee was talking about how if Super Bowl's played tomorrow, the Cowboys and Dolphins would be the two representatives. Do you believe that Mike McDaniel has to figure out how to be a great head coach of a great team, because right now they're 2-0. Right now, like you act like a big dog when you're a big dog, but until you're a big dog, you don't know how to act like a big dog. That's why I brought up that damn horse behind you.
Well,
or big dog.
I think that last night is a really good learning experience for him in situations like that. When you survive those scenarios, obviously it doesn't sting like a loss does. You get the benefit of having the win. And all right, like, where can I clean things up? And he said that in his post-game locker room speech before he gave everybody a game ball again. They know that
he
they
give everybody a game ball again. It's enough already with the everybody getting the game ball thing.
Maybe I can't confirm, but based on last year, you just assume that everybody's getting a game ball after every win.
Stephen Ross's biggest budget problem. That's why they couldn't sign Dalvin Cook. He's spending so much money on these game balls.
Coincidentally, Dalvin Cook, not a very good game yesterday in Dallas.
Yeah, that's a lot of mentioned. Yeah.
No, I think that, when things get a little more high intense, high pressure, I don't think Mike McDaniel is going to answer the sideline reporter at halftime in a snarky but funny way. Oh, I didn't do anything. And then sprint off like he's racing and running away from the camera. I think we'll see, even though I loved it, I don't think that we're going to see a lot of that when the stakes get a little higher later on in the season. But I also think, though, like, that mindset and that kind of relaxed atmosphere kind of helps as the season goes on when you're in high pressure, high intense situations, that guys aren't panicking. Guys can take a second to breathe and hey, look, we're playing football here. Let's do what we know and what we've been good at for so long.
Real quick, Appel, because Appel's the public address announcer at Lone Depot Park. 30 seconds. Can you give everyone a little primer on the Marlins? Because right now they're a playoff team, correct?
Yeah, they are tied for the final playoff spot. They have the tiebreaker over everybody they are in the race with. So they essentially control their own destiny here going towards the end of the season. They just played what everybody was considering such a tough stretch, and it was. And they took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. They took 2 out of 3 from the Phillies. They did lose 3 out of 4 to the Brewers, but they just swept the Atlanta Braves. That's an 8-5 record against those 4 playoff teams, 4 teams that are the class. It's the 3 division leaders and the number 1 wild card. And they went 8-5 in those 13 games. They've got the Mets, they've got the Brewers, they've got the Mets again, and they've got the Pirates to close out the season. This could very well happen, and it would be against a lot of odds considering they had to do a lot of this without Jorge Soler. They've been doing it now without Sandy Alcantara. Great outing, bounce back from Jesus Luzardo yesterday. I mean, this team, Jazz Chisholm Jr., back-to-back days with a grand slam. Jake Berger, back-to-back days with a big home run. It's a different guy every night, and this is as much fun as I have had watching baseball in a really, really long time, and it's a great group of guys, and if you can make it out to the ballpark for the final homestand this week, please do. They deserve your support. They play a really exciting brand of baseball, so I hope to see you out at the park this week, even though I'm missing the last 2 games.
Well said. And speaking of Jake Berger, today is National Cheeseburger Day. So if you see him, wish him happy National Cheeseburger Day.
I believe tonight is $5 hamburgers also.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah. It's not tonight. It's one of the nights this week.
That's too much.
Too much for a cheeseburger?
$5?
$5? You can't.
I mean, you know how much they cost regularly
nowadays?
$42 regularly.
All right, Josh Appel. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, guys. Always appreciate it.